This is Phil Huber, pastor of Inland Community Church. Glad for another opportunity to bring some spiritual nourishment. 2 Corinthians 4, verses 16 to 18. Therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, and what is unseen is eternal. In 2 Corinthians 4, Paul is reflecting on how he can persevere in unpredictable and difficult circumstances. In both verse 1 and verse 16, he talks about not losing heart when life throws you a curveball, when your plans are interrupted. This is not the way you wanted it. When there's failure or frustration or fear, how do you fight discouragement? Well, maybe Paul can help. Most of all, Paul is confronting his mortality. His human frame is wearing out. He is, his words, wasting away. He will not, cannot live forever in his current state. And not just himself, Paul includes all of us in this common lot using the inclusive pronouns we and our. Our bodies are wearing out. And that achy knee and the graying hair and the crow's feet around the eyes and those reader glasses and the brittle bones, all evidence of a body that is, okay, let's not sugarcoat it, wasting away. Which sounds grim, but remember that in this passage, Paul is fighting for hope. Before mentioning wasting away, he asserts that we do not lose heart. But this is not Pollyannish. He's not crossing his fingers and making wishes. To ignore our own mortality and the aches and pains and bumps and bruises in our bodies that reflect that is to close our eyes to reality. Truth is, our bodies are wearing out. Truth is, we are mortal. We can ignore that in the steady routine of normalcy, but when that routine is disrupted, hello coronavirus, we are reminded we are indeed wasting away. But Paul is pulling us to see the other side of that with equal clarity. 2 Corinthians 4 is filled with opposites, wasting away and renewed, outwardly and inwardly, temporary and eternal, seen and unseen. Paul says, though outwardly we are wasting away, stark truth, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day, which is why we don't lose hope. The wasting is overpowered by the renewal, a renewal that is inward and eternal. And this is the heart of why we don't lose hope. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. There is so much richness in that expression. Paul knows that the roots of the Old Testament concept of glory are grounded in weightiness. The word for glory in Hebrew, kabod, is also the word for heavy. In fact, there's a wonderful wordplay in 1 Samuel 4 when the priest Eli hears that the Ark of the Covenant has been captured by the Philistines. He falls off his chair by the gate in the city and dies because, the text says, he was old and heavy. Kabod. Okay, he was overweight. Who are we to judge? But then the text says that his daughter-in-law goes into labor when she hears the news of the ark's capture by the Philistines, and she names the child that is born Ichabod, Ichabod, which means no glory in Hebrew. And her explanation for the name of the child is this: the glory has departed from Israel. The kabod is gone. And the narrator adds this explanation: because the capture of the ark of God and the deaths of her father-in-law and her husband. You see, the glory, the kabod, the heaviness, has indeed departed in more ways than one. The ark is captured, the dwelling place of God's glory, God's heaviness, so that God's weighty presence has left the people. And the heavy judge Eli, same word, kabod, who led Israel for 40 years, is now dead. The kabod has left God's glory and Eli's heavy frame. This helps us to understand the essence of glory. It is an expression of the weightiness of God, that he is substantial. His power, his knowledge, his love, his justice, his mercy, his providence, his purity, each of his attributes is heavy, concentrated, and pure. Put it on a scale against any other expression of that same attribute, and his outweighs it. His character is weighty, heavy, dense, solid. So God's glory is his weightiness. So listen again to Paul's assertion. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. The eternal glory that awaits us outweighs the current troubles that we are facing. And this brings perspective. Yesterday I was giving my son a hard time about sleeping in till 11 o'clock in the morning, and his defense was that it's all relative. If he wakes up every day at 11 o'clock, then you can't really call that sleeping in. And what would be sleeping in for me, 8 o'clock in the morning, would be getting up early for him. Well, he does have a point. Our perception of things is often dependent on a comparison. Is 8 a.m. sleeping in or getting up early? Well, it depends on what you're comparing it to. Is 100 pounds heavy? Well, for a cat, yes. For a cow, no. It depends on what your standard is. So Paul says, take your current circumstances, every aspect of your current circumstances, the financial toll of lost work opportunities, the emotional weight of fear and isolation, the physical challenges of so much time on the couch, the struggles of lost momentum with projects and goals, the disappointment for anticipated celebrations and special events that had to be canceled, the relational strain on your marriage, on your parenting, on your friendships, the sorrow of lost loved ones, and the inability to grieve that appropriately. Every way that this has had some kind of impact on your life, from the trivial to the profound. Every bit of that adds weight to the pile. Some things are minor, just a few ounces. Others are much more substantial. They add pounds to the total. But throw it all together. Don't leave anything out. Pile it all up. Put it on a scale. What does it weigh? 10 tons? 100 tons? Is that heavy? Our gut reaction is to say, oh yeah, it's really heavy. Because immediately we're comparing it to the way that things used to be. The way that things were before this outbreak. And by that comparison, these things are much heavier. But Paul wants to offer us a different comparison. Not our previous circumstances, but our future glory. And by that comparison, these things are all lightweight. Our future glory, with its Hebrew underpinnings of weightiness, remember, outweighs our current troubles. Troubles that Paul says are light. And not light in the sense of trivial. He has talked about them with all the seriousness of wasting away. Earlier in the book, he explains how serious the troubles that he has faced were. Listen to 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 8. We do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about the troubles that we were experiencing in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired of life itself. These are not trivial problems. But the reality is that weighed on a scale, any suffering in this life is far outweighed by the glory of the life to come. And not only a comparison of magnitude, also a comparison of time. These current circumstances are momentary. They will pass. We will get through this, even as weeks stretch into months. This is temporary, but the glory is for eternity. But this isn't just comparison. It is also preparation. He says, for our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. Other translations use preparing or producing instead of achieving. The idea is that the one generates the other. The temporary and light trouble produces the eternal and substantial glory. And Paul would say that we are getting a great deal in that. It may seem like a high price to pay in the moment until we see what we're getting for that cost. And then we will inevitably feel like it has been a bargain. The troubles serve a purpose. They are getting us ready to experience the far heavier glory of eternity. Suffering and struggle is molding us and making us people who are fit for eternity. As he said earlier in this same chapter, we always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, in our struggles, in our hardships, in our sufferings, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body, in eternal glory. The difficulties are binding us to Christ, whose death and resurrection is the substance of our hope. This is what keeps us from living for the temporal and pushes us forward toward the eternal. This is what keeps us from depending on ourselves and pushes us to depend wholly and fully on Christ. The weight of glory is far, far greater than the weight of COVID-19. But the weight of COVID-19 is pushing us on toward that. So, Paul says, we do not lose heart.